A mother crashes a Black Lives Matter protest after being shot at by a suspect who was killed by police. We also have Joe Manchin sinking another Democrat spending bill, leaving Bernie Sanders to lose his mind. Joe Biden allegedly was being fed pills by Jill Biden during the 2020 campaign, and a trans inmate got 2 women pregnant while being in prison. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Monday, July 18th, and I hope all of you had a lovely weekend. Heck, you're starting this Monday off right by joining me here on The Bald Brad Show, where we bring you all the news and information you need to know about. So support us by hitting that like and subscribe button. Not only would you be supporting conservative, but you'd be supporting conservative thought and ideas getting out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel, so your help would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, as always, let's jump into our lead story of the day, and that is about a rally for a Minnesota man killed by police took a dramatic turn on Saturday when the mom he had shot at just hours before he was fatally shot, well, she crashed the protest to call Andrew Sundberg a bad guy. And I mean, we've been waiting for something like this to happen where the BLM movement basically eat themselves, because anytime a black guy is shot by the police or killed at by the police, it's just automatically unjustified. Where's the body cam footage? Where's this? Where's that? All the questions are asked towards the police chief, the sergeant, the officers involved. Everybody's asked those questions, but nobody talks about the actual person that shot at the police officers or shot at somebody else. Very similar to what happened here. Nobody's talking about Andrew Sundberg as being a bad guy that shot at this mom and her children. So BLM's just going to go out and start doing all these things. This is so reminiscent on the Jalen Walker shooting. Yes, he was shot 60 times by police, and you might be going, well, that sounds crazy. Let me explain for a moment. Jalen Walker evaded police the day before. Then they try to do another routine traffic stop on him, of which he led them on a pursuit, shot at them during the pursuit. It's on the POCAM, meaning you can actually see the muzzle flash being shot at the cops. You can hear it and see it on the body cam from the officer's, chest as he's going on the pursuit. And he also calls it in. Furthermore, he gets out of the car on the passenger side while it's still rolling with a ski mask on, runs away from the police as they're chasing him. They try to taser him. Multiple times he turns around and tries to grab something in his waistband. The final time he really draws, looks like he's going to pull something out, and that's when they shot him. Now, 60 times, there was a lot of police officers there, and you don't know what's going to land when your adrenaline's going. So yeah, he got pumped full of lead. Probably shouldn't have done what he did, but in my mind, a good shoot. Now, Andrew Sundberg, again, for what he did, probably was a good shoot as well. We don't have all the information out to say that it was or wasn't, but the scene that took place on Saturday was dramatic, and it was caught on video. Let's go ahead and see a little bit of that.
Respect life, demand justice, and we're demanding the release of the body cam footage. Yes, ma'am.
As you could see, the woman was very emotional, and rightfully so. She was shot at, and she explained that she had been cooking dinner for her children when bullets came through her apartment door, adding that there were shell casings all over the hallway outside after the incident. Sundberg was killed early Thursday after a standoff that began late Wednesday. He allegedly shot into the apartment where that woman lived with her 2 children, then fired again at cops who rushed the family to safety. But you're going to get Black Lives Matter coming out doing this whole movement, this whole rally thing on behalf of Sundberg. But where are they for her? Where are they for her children? Nowhere to be found. Of course, nowhere to be found. Well, Sutherland's father, Mike, had tried to help negotiate the surrender of his son, who was barricaded in his apartment, but the 6-hour standoff ended at 4:30 a.m. when 2 police snipers on a rooftop across the street fatally shot him. On Saturday, the elder Sundberg, who was at the protest, was seen trying to comfort the woman as she railed against the demonstrators. But, he did nothing wrong, folks. He's in the clear. No big deal here on what his son had done. Black Lives Matter doesn't want to talk about that. It's all the police's fault because they need to push a narrative to not only defund the police, but police brutality and all these other things. Well, Sundberg's mother, Cindy Sundberg, said her son, who they adopted from Ethiopia, was experiencing a mental health crisis. You think? You think? When police responded to a report of shots fired in his apartment building, according to video released by family attorney Ben Crump on Twitter. The Minneapolis Police Department reported that a mother with 2 young children called claiming that someone had shot into her apartment and that officers witnessed additional shots when they arrived on the 3rd floor of the building. But, didn't deserve to die. Should have just been taken in, clean hands, no firearm. Those police don't deserve to go home and see their family. Nothing of the sort. That woman doesn't deserve to see her kids and her children grow up. It's just a bad shoot regardless. We can't ask questions about it because if you do, you're a racist. That's the thing. Automatically, especially if you're a white person watching this and you ask any sort of questions and you go against the narrative in any way, you're racist. Careful. That's how it works, folks. That's how it works. You can't ask questions. So the shooting of Sundberg, a black man, has further inflamed race relations in Minneapolis, where 2 years ago, George Floyd was killed by a police officer in an incident that touched off a summer of rioting around the nation. Don't you love that? I love how they put the rioting in there. And that is important because we literally spent 4 years watching Black Lives Matter movement, the progressive left and Democrat Party burn our cities down to the ground, but they're going to push this whole January 6th hubbub that didn't do anywhere near the damage that these protests did, like billions of dollars in damages. January 6th was nowhere near that. I'm not advocating for what happened to January 6th. Matter of fact, I don't know a single Republican or conservative that was for it. We all think they're idiots who stormed it, but you have Black Lives Matter still pushing this type of stuff. The Sundbergs told reporters they don't believe police would have shot one of their white biological children in the same situation. There you go. It happens at some point, right, folks? It happens at some point. Everyone knows, this is a quote, everyone knows had it been a white person in that building, they would have taken him out. They would have waited. Cindy Sundberg, who has 9 children total with her husband. I would like to point out, Cindy, that there is actual body cam footage of police killing unarmed white men too. It's not just you guys, okay? It does happen. Believe it or not. I know there's this alternate universe that you guys aren't unaware of that happens, but white people do get shot. Unarmed white people do get killed by the police. It does happen. I know that we're going against the narrative, but it's okay. Your son did something terrible. He shot at a woman who was cooking her dinner with 2 children in there. Furthermore, he shot at the police officers. Furthermore, he did a standoff. All these things, but you're not going to talk. You're just going to talk about your son being emotionally ill. You're not going to talk about any of the other things. I haven't found if there's a rap sheet on this guy yet, but you'd be surprised because Jalen Walker guy really only had a traffic ticket and he did all those things. Now, I don't know if there was any other priors that maybe we're unaware of, but a lot of times when the parents come out and they push this whole race thing and working with the Black Lives Matter movement, then you get Al Sharpton showing up and Reverend Jesse Jackson and this whole thing, this whole hubbub. Then you find out the guy had a massive rap sheet. They're going through his 2nd grade pictures to post that online when he's 26 years old. All these things, they want to post, a nice photo of the person because we can't push a narrative that this guy clearly made multiple bad decisions, a series of bad decisions in his life. I would like to point out that he made a series of bad decisions here by shooting into somebody else's apartment and doing all these things. So I love that this mom had the tenacity to go out there and crash this protest, and we all get to see it. We all get to see the phonies that the Black Lives Matter movement is. They don't care. They don't care about Black lives. They don't even care about the Black community. Folks, you can tell automatically I mean, look at the landscaping. You would think that if they were really in for the black community to help them, could we do a little bit of landscaping, get a little weed whacker and edger out there a little bit to help make things and spruce things up a bit? I mean, that's the very least you can do. Literally the very least. If you're not going to help the actual people that live within that community, maybe you can help the community itself out by doing a little bit of landscaping with those millions of dollars you have. But no, you want to go build these $6 million mansions. I shouldn't even say build. They want to buy these $6 million mansions that are owned by Marxists that crap on white people, but live in a white neighborhood. If that makes sense to you, let me know, because it doesn't make sense to me. Well, and other things that don't make sense. Bernie Sanders, folks. Bernie Sanders. This guy, there's certain people within Congress that you're wrapping your head around of how do you get elected. And I love that he has that I next to his name for independent. He's literally an open socialist. The guy honeymooned in Soviet Union Russia. Like, this guy's not an independent, and he's there with the Democrats all the time. So Bernie unloads after Manchin seeks the Dems' latest spending bill. Can you imagine if they're just trying to spend more money right now? Just pump money out like it's freaking hotcakes. We're freaking 9.1% inflation. So leftist Bernie Sanders, I mean, leftist doesn't even do it justice, folks. This guy is, I don't even know what's further left. I guess socialist. I mean, socialist is still left, but anywho, lashed out at moderate Senator Joe Manchin Sunday after Manchin scuttled the Democrats' latest spending package. Now, the Democrats got to be hating Joe Manchin, right? But the thing with Joe Manchin is that he actually serves his constituents. He doesn't serve himself. He doesn't serve his party. And he doesn't just go along party lines. He's actually an old school type of politician who goes, look, this is what my constituents want. This is what they're going to get. And this is not what they want. So I'm not going to give it to you guys, nor am I going to pass on with it. Appearing as a guest on ABC's This Week, on Sunday, Sanders claimed that the U.S. is moving rapidly into an oligarch form of society. He went on to blast Manchin for allegedly sabotaging President Joe Biden's domestic agenda and accused him of being beholden to the ultra-rich instead of working-class people in West Virginia. Just picture him saying that. He's with the ultra-rich! He's with the ultra-rich! You can't even say rich correctly. It's the 1%. They're out to get you all. And I love how he used to be against millionaires. But if you notice, as time went on, he changed it to billionaires because he himself is a millionaire, owns multiple houses. But he's just gonna switch right on over without anybody noticing, except all us conservatives, Republicans notice. The only ones that don't are the Democrats, who want to sink and put themselves into his narrative because, you know, they're victims. They can't make as much as the millionaires and billionaires. Now, it is hard to make $1 billion, but everybody can really become a millionaire. There's a great book by Chris Hogan from Dave Ramsey's team called Everyday Millionaire. I recommend that you all read it because everybody could pretty much do it. Really, the only people to basically blame at the end of the day is yourself. But I know that goes against a massive narrative by many peoples because they go off and they hear, oh, well, you know, the rich are out to get me. The Republicans are bad. The conservatives are evil. You know, the Democrats are really the ones that are going to speak up for me. Yeah. They speaking up for you right now with the economy in the trash, inflation, 40-year high, massive illegal immigration, Joe Biden bumping fists with Saudi Arabia, begging them for oil after they just got done killing a Washington Post journalist, literally chopping him up in a hotel room and putting him in a vat of acid and pouring him down the drain. Things are going great with Joe Biden over there in the Middle East right now. You got Afghanistan debacle taking place, you know, killed 13 Americans for no reason. If he would have just had a plan to pull out correctly, but he didn't want to. He just woke up one morning and decided it was a good idea. And he just continues to have just great ideas here, folks, because he wants to spend more money. He wants to pump more money back in the economy. And you see this from Dems all the time, right? I live in California. We have Newsom going to pump out more checks here because of the inflation. Yes, you heard me correctly. He wants to pump out more money to help with inflation. They just don't get it. They literally don't get it. And that's why we're in the state that we are. And that's why we need another Republican to come out in 2024 to clean up Democrats' messes. We're always cleaning up their messes. It's unbelievable. Well, this is what Bernie had to say when he was on ABC's This Week.
I want to turn to Congress and the agenda there. Senator Joe Manchin, of course, abruptly pulled the plug this week on the Democrats'
No, Martha,
plans
he didn't
to
abruptly. Martha,
Okay,
let me respectfully
he
disagree.
abruptly on Friday
He didn't abruptly do anything.
He was
has
negotiating
sabotaged
for a while.
the president's agenda. No. Look, if you check the record 6 months ago, I made it clear that you have people like Manchin, Cinema to a lesser degree, who are intentionally sabotaging the president's agenda, what the American people want, what a majority of us in the Democratic caucus want. Nothing new about this. And the problem was that we continue to talk to Manchin like he was serious. He was not. This is a guy who is a major recipient of fossil fuel money, a guy who has received campaign contributions from 25 Republican billionaires. Do you think this guy is serious?
Senator, okay, you say he wasn't serious, but Manchin says his main goal is to do what's good for West Virginia, and he's worried about inflation. Listen to what he told the West Virginia radio station. Listen to this, please.
Is that right?
Inflation is absolutely killing many, many people. They can't buy gasoline. They have a hard time buying groceries. Everything they buy and consume for their daily lives is a hardship to them.
Your reaction to that, Senator?
Well, look, the same nonsense that Manchin has been talking about for a year. West Virginia, it's a beautiful state. I've had the pleasure of being there. Great people. It is one of the poorest states in this country. You ask the people of West Virginia whether they want to expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and eyeglasses. You ask the people of West Virginia whether we should demand that the wealthiest people and large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. Ask the people of West Virginia whether or not all people should have health care as a human right like in every other country on earth. That's what they will say. In my humble opinion, Manchin represents the very wealthiest people in this country, not working families in West Virginia or America.
It is hilarious to me that Bernie Sanders is going to use the word nonsense when talking about Joe Manchin's agenda for the last year, while Bernie Sanders has been pushing nonsense for the last 40 plus years, saying how great socialism is, that everybody should have free health care, free college education, free everything, have your student loans forgiven, your debts paid off by the taxpayer. Yeah, this is the stuff Bernie Sanders has been pushing. That Soviet Russia was great until that collapsed. Then Cuba was great, then that collapsed. Then Venezuela was great, that collapsed. This is what this guy does. When socialism doesn't work, he moves on to the next new country that is trying to implement it, when we know in the last 100 years has been tried over 100 times and has never worked. But it's not going to stop him from trying to push it here in America and try to collapse this country from the inside out. This is what the Democrats want. Now they're called socialist Democrats. In reality, they're just socialist. Well, Sanders went on to say that voters must elect Democrats to protect the climate. Quote, "It ain't Democrats. It isn't the president. It's the future of the planet." When Manchin sabotages climate change, this is the future generations, what's going on right now. This is an existential threat to humanity. What this election must be about is whether or not we're going to vote for candidates who have had to stand up for working people. You gotta love this. A guy that's never actually worked a real job in his life and has been suckling at the government teat for the last 40 plus years. I think he was literally just like a paperboy for like a weekend. He's going to push here for working people. The guy's never worked a real job in his entire life, but he's going to stand up for them. There was a study that was done just most recently that came out, basically said that no Democrats elected had any business experience, which is why we see the state of where our country's at with Democrats in office that are running the show right now in all three branches. But they're going to stand up for the working people, folks. Stand up for the planet and have the courage to take on the billionaire class who dominates our country. Again, you got to love that he's going after the billionaires now. Like I said early on, it was all about the millionaires until he became one. Now it's about the billionaire class. This is how he works. Just another reed in the wind. That's what this election is about. We need more progressive Democrats. No, we don't. No, we don't. We see what happens when we have progressive Democrats in office. Joe Biden used to be a moderate. Now he's catering to the progressive left, the Democrats, the socialists, and look where everything goes. I love how he's also pushing this whole climate change agenda, very similar to what Joe Biden's doing amongst other Democrats and progressive leftists, because they're blaming everybody, right, for this oil. It's all Putin's fault. But before that, it was Trump's fault. Then it went to, again, Putin's fault. And then after that, going, well, we can't keep blaming Putin because there's other data out there to show that it's not just Putin's fault. Crap. Let's blame the oil companies. And then when they're done blaming the CEOs, because the CEOs came out and said, look, we can't pump any more oil. You're doing all these things as government entities in terms of regulations, the permits and all this other stuff. They go, well, crap, we can't blame it on Joe. We can't blame it on Democrats because we're in all three offices. Who else can we blame? Oh, let's blame it on the gas stations. Oh, crap, they're only making pennies in profit. How can we manipulate the data and make sense of all this? Let's skew it a little bit. Let's when we show the American people the graph, let's put the price per gallon on there, the market price, the retail price versus the crude oil. See, when we manipulate that, it will show 60-cent difference. Ooh, right? And you got to love, again, that they're pushing and saying that Manchin is sabotaging climate change. All the while, we need more oil. And you have freaking Joe Biden going over and praising Saudi Arabia, kissing their feet, rubbing their shoulders, brushing their hair, whatever the hell he's doing over there. You know, when we should be producing our oil, we shouldn't be going out and trying to ask other countries for oil. We have enough here to supply ourselves and take care of ourselves first, and then export anything else that we have in excess of. But he's not going to do that. They're going to blame everybody else but the Democrats. All the while, we need more progressive Democrats in office. Yes, with everything going around, great freaking idea. But again, nonsense, folks. It's all nonsense with Joe Manchin. No nonsense with Bernie Sanders, but as we just displayed, spewing nothing but nonsense and idiotic things. Now, speaking of somebody that's been speaking nonsense, at least since the 2020 campaign, we have allegations here that Jill Biden, Joe Biden's wife, was feeding Biden pills during the 2020 campaign. This comes from Tucker Carlson. This is a big claim. I've said something very similar, but it was just kind of like, I didn't have any actual proof of it. It was more of like, I have a feeling the guy was on some Adderall. He was on something, Ritalin. I mean, this guy had to be taking something during the 2020 election, because we would see him sometimes. I mean, he looked out there. He just looked out there. And I'll show a clip right now. I will prove it to you. Just look into the president's eyes as he tries to figure this out.
We're going to accommodate them. We're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains of Putin's kleptocracy. Kleptocracy and the guys who are the kleptocracies.
Does he look like he's all there? I don't think so. Joe Biden hasn't been with us for a long, long time. His brain's in a galaxy far, far away, folks. I mean, that's really probably what the James Webb Telescope's for. Not really looking for planets or galaxies or stars or anything like that. It's just to look for Joe Biden's conscience. Okay. In hopes of getting it back, that maybe we could fix a little bit of something here in America. But hell, even if he did get it back, who knows? I doubt anything would change. So an addled Joe Biden had to be heavily medicated in pill popping sessions supervised by his wife during the 2020 presidential campaign. This comes from an explosive report by Tucker Carlson on Fox News.
Had noted at all that this guy couldn't speak in complete sentences, couldn't convey coherent ideas. Nobody had ever mentioned that. And of course, anyone in Washington knew Joe Biden. He'd been there since 1972, and basically most people kind of liked him. He was a friendly guy. This was not the Joe Biden anyone who knew Joe Biden had seen before. He completely changed. This was clearly cognitive decline. This was dementia, obviously. So we drew a conclusion that now sounds ridiculous, but it seemed logical at the time. This guy can't be the Democratic nominee. He can barely speak. How did he manage to get through the campaign? Well, it turned out, we learned later, his staff, supervised by Dr. Jill, his wife, was giving him pills before every public appearance, checking the time, and at a certain hour giving him a dose of something. Now, that's not a guess. We're not making that up. We've spoken directly to someone who was there and saw it happen multiple times. Now, before taking the medication, this person said, Biden was, quote, like a small child. You could not communicate with him.
The president, whose cognitive abilities have increasingly come under question amid a seemingly endless series of gaffes and micromanaging by his White House handlers, needed unspecified meds to function on the trail. This came from Carlson on Friday night going into the weekend. Now, I've done multiple shorts and compiled video of Joe Biden's gaffes and his micromanaging done by his White House aides. And it is so cringy, hard to watch, and also sad all at the freaking same time. And sometimes it's even funny, but there is clearly cognitive decline going on with this guy. And it's happening pretty rapidly. I mean, hell, you just saw a clip there, folks, where he's just off in space. He don't know where the hell he's at. The cable's news host said then candidate was dosed before speeches, debates, and other appearances. These reports are coming out saying that basically before any time he went out in the public or went on television or anything where he had to speak, he was being dosed with something by his wife watching him, amongst others. And I believe it. That's the thing. I don't really need much evidence to believe it. That's the sad thing of it all. And Tucker Carlson has basically a source, an anonymous source, that said that they were there and witnessed this. Here's my problem with that, is that's very CNN of to do, right? Of Tucker Carlson to do, is when you get one anonymous source, then we roll with it. And it turns out that source is basically crap. I want to be able to hear and see multiple sources and eyewitnesses and credible ones in terms of what happened. Then I'm more likely to believe it. If I see video or something substantive other than Tucker Carlson saying, hey, I got somebody that was willing to tell me they were there and they saw it. I mean, I need a little bit more. This is what Tucker had to say. How did he manage to get through the campaign? Well, it turned out, we learned later, his staff supervised by Jill Biden, his wife, was given his pills before every public appearance, checking the time and a certain hour, giving him a dose of something. Now, it's not a guess. We're not making it up. We've spoken directly to someone who was there and saw it happen multiple times. Now, again, I don't doubt it. I would just like more evidence of it. While incumbent President Donald Trump crisscrossed the nation, giving rallies in arenas and stadiums, Biden kept such a low profile that he was mocked as hiding Biden. His staff often called a lid on his schedule, meaning he was done for the day before noon. Yet the strategy worked. He won the election. He just hid in the basement. And I think that Donald Trump could have won the election if he would have done something very similar in the sense of just didn't say knucklehead things. Again, I voted for Trump. If Trump runs in 2024, I'll vote for him again. I love Trump. He's huge. He's my favorite. I love him. But just because you love somebody doesn't mean that you can't criticize them. And it's good criticism, positive criticism, that if he were to do it, he would be liked by a lot more Americans, a lot more people on the other side, like independents. So without the medication, which Carlson said continues to this day, Biden was confused and childlike. It's funny that he uses that word childlike because there are clips that I've seen while trying to compile these compilations where he does act like a kid. Like the things that he says in interviews, they're not necessarily gaffes, right? He's not fumbling through his words. He's not like lost in space trying to figure out where the hell he's at. But he's acting like a kid. Like the things that he says is going, that's not something that an elderly man would say. Hell, even a middle-aged man would say. That's something like a child would say. So it's very interesting to me that he's using this word childlike. Now, before taking the medications, this person said Biden was, quote, like a small child. You could not communicate with him. He changed completely because he was on drugs, and he clearly still is on drugs. Carlson said, quoting an unnamed source, someone's pushing. We don't know what the drugs are. We should know. Yeah, I mean, I want him to take a cognitive test, as does everybody. I mean, Donald Trump has been pushing for this since back in 2020 and before. A lot of people have been talking about this. Barack Obama's own physician, Texas Republican Representative Ronnie Jackson, who served under Obama and the Trump administration, raised alarms himself about what he considers to be Biden's declining mental state. In 2020, he called on Biden to take a cognitive test. And earlier this month revealed that former President Barack Obama had sent him a scathing email for publicly calling out Biden's alleged dementia. Quote, all I know is that he's got age-related cognitive decline, right? He is not mentally fit right now, Jackson said on a podcast. He's 78 years old, and you could see it. You don't need to be a physician to look at him and take a look at his behavior and some other stuff. Just the way he shuffles away, stares off into space. It's almost as if that's exactly what I said. Yes. How he shuffles, to give you a perspective, the White House, there was a report that came out not too long ago, and I actually reported on it myself. They're literally worried about him tripping over a wire and dying. Like a cord, like a camera cord or just something laying across the floor because of the way he shuffles. And that he's not all there, that he's just aimlessly walking around the White House and not knowing what the hell is going on at all. And they're literally fearful that he's going to fall, break his hip, shatter his pelvis, hit his temple, hit his trachea. They're literally fearful of it. As am I. Look, he's the president. We need somebody to run the country. Granted, is he really running the country? He's a puppet. I want to know who's pulling the strings here. But you understand what I'm really trying to get at in terms of, I don't want to see him die. Look, he's a human being. He has a family, but he should not be president. And the Democrats, and I'm fully aware now, 81, 82 million people supposedly voted for this guy. I said 70 million people. I was trying to just be conservative with the numbers. You guys wanted me to be exact. 81, 82, sure, whatever the hell. I still can't believe that Democrats voted for this guy. 92% of Democrats, if he were to run against Trump, would still vote for this guy. This is how insane that party is. And we're all the crazies, right? We're the evils, we're the nutsos, the conservative Republicans. 92% are so encompassed with Trump derangement syndrome that they would literally rather have a guy that's not there, clearly not there, slurring through his words, fighting with his teleprompter, can't read lines, says repeat the line, might trip over a cord, gets chauffeured by his Secret Service, doesn't follow directions to get to his own office, doesn't know his wife's name, forgets that he's running for president, forget that he is president, thinks Kamala Harris is president, forgets his generals' names. The guy literally doesn't know what state he's in at times when he's talking to people. They're willing to do that. They're willing to put our country in jeopardy because they don't like Donald Trump that much. When Donald Trump said knucklehead things, but he did great things. Joe Biden says knucklehead things and does knucklehead things. Vast difference. Donald Trump wins in my book. Quote, I don't know what the job entails, both physically and mentally, and how demanding it is. And I can tell you right now, I'm 100% sure that Joe Biden is capable of doing that job, the doctor added. So there you have it. Barack Obama's physician, Donald Trump's physician, looks at Joe Biden and goes, hell, that guy ain't all there. There's no way he's able to do the job. Like I said, I want to know who's pulling the strings, because you got the Democrats running this country into the ground. Their agenda's running this country into the ground. And hell, moving on to my next segment, speaking of their agenda, their LGBTQ plus agenda running this country into the ground. Check this out. Who could have saw this coming? A trans inmate serving time in New Jersey's women's prison for manslaughter has been moved out after getting 2 fellow convicts pregnant, according to the State Department of Corrections. Who could have saw that coming, right? Shocking, freaking shocking. But, I don't know how this works. How does a trans inmate get somebody else pregnant? You see, like, the conundrum I have here mentally, I'm trying to follow. If they're trans, right? If they're clearly a biological male that went female, was moved into a female detention center, had sex with other females, even though it's not supposed to like other females because they're trans, because they're women. So that would make him lesbian. But then if he is now a biological, fictitious biological female, wouldn't that also make him bi, because he's supposed to like guys and girls? But then you can't have non-binary and binary within the same sphere of the LGBTQ community because they contradict one another. You see where I'm going with this? This is where the stuff doesn't make sense, right? It's literally not logical, but they're still going to push it. So Demi Minor, 27, was transferred out of Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women in June. 2 months after NJ Advance Media reports, Minor impregnated 2 women during consensual sexual relationships. Minor, who is serving a 30-year sentence and not eligible for parole until 2037, complained about being relocated to the Garden State Youth Correctional Facility on a website maintained by supporters. This is the hell that NJDOC wants to put me through. This is my punishment for what occurs over 2 months ago. They have violated my right to be safe and free from sexual harassment by putting me in one of the most violent youth correctional facilities. So you get tried and convicted for manslaughter, and you expect basically a castle, a nice suite for you to be in. This is crazy. And this is kind of where our correctional mindset is going, is they want to look towards some countries, and the country's name is slipping my mind, but literally they allow convicts just to roam free, and they get full-on apartments, TVs, everything, kitchens, literally everything, and you just roam free. You have all this ground. You're just basically living in an apartment complex while serving your time. So you get to go out and kill somebody, right? You can slaughter an entire family. And this is what the progressive Democrats that Bernie Sanders wants you to elect more on terms of climate change and things like this for them to have. So they'll slaughter your entire family, chop them up, and then go get to live a nice life with TV, cable, 3 meals a day paid for. They get education. They get faith services, whether you're Muslim or Christian or Catholic. You get a nice bed. You probably have a nice apartment than the family that he killed that was living in. This is the type of stuff they want to move into. I'm not saying they have that yet, but want to move into. And he's going to complain, or she, whatever the hell this person is, going to complain about their state of living because they literally freaking got convicted of manslaughter. It's just so baffling. It's such the mentality of Black Lives Matter, to be quite honest. That's literally their mentality. It's always somebody else's fault, but the person actually commits the crime and does the thing wrong is never talked about, never spoken of. They're just only spoken of highly, right? Never did anything wrong, no rap sheet, didn't do jack shit, and just somehow, just miraculously was shot by the police, or miraculously was thrown into a bad jail or bad corrections facility, and it's everybody else's fault for the crimes that they committed, not the crimes that the actual criminal committed. That's how this all works. Minor complained of being abused by correction officers during the move and by inmates at the youth facility. According to Minor's website, Minor killed a former foster father in 2011 who Minor wrongly blamed at the time for sexual abuse. NJDOC cannot comment on any active investigations, the State Department of Corrections in a statement said. The department has zero tolerance for abuse, and the safety and security of the incarcerated population and staff are our critical importance. Minor is being held in a specialized unit in a prison for young offenders. This comes from the Department of Corrections spokesperson. It was unknown if either of the pregnant prisoners remained pregnant. In other words, either had a miscarriage or possibly an abortion. Who knows in these freaking states. The pregnancies drew attention to New Jersey's transgender prisoner policy, which was established in the wake of a settlement agreement with the State of American Civil Liberties Union. Oh, God. Of course, the ACLU has to dip their hand in everything. This just went great. You know, ACLU, they want trans women, basically biological men, to use women's restrooms, even though there's been accounts of women being raped by these transgender people, but they're still going to push you. This isn't as an adult thing either. This has happened even at youth in schools. This is stuff they want to push. They want to have, for those that have daughters in high school, again, I'm a high school teacher. Would you feel comfortable having a boy claim that he is a woman and, going through some stuff and going in there and watching your daughter get undressed? Would you be comfortable with that? Some would say, oh yeah, I'm completely comfortable with a teenage boy seeing my daughter naked, which is crazy to me. But this is what the ACLU wants, and amongst other progressive Democrats and progressive leftists. The policy requires transgender prisoners to be held in prisons that match their gender identity, not their actual biological sex, but their identity, what they think they are. Folks, I need to just put this in perspective, and I know that you all understand this, but for the sake of just the show, this person got incarcerated for manslaughter, for killing somebody. And they're going to treat him as if he's capable of understanding some sort of gender identity, that he is a woman. They're going to play into this fictitious world that he's living in. And it's so baffling to me that they're willing to play into it, but this is where the Democrat Party's at. The spokesperson said that DOC continues to follow the agreement and is currently reviewing the policy for housing transgender incarcerated persons with the intention of implementing minor modifications. Most states house transgender prisoners in facilities matching their biological gender. Last year, California began allowing trans inmates to request transfer to prisons that do not match their biological sex. Hundreds reportedly applied for the transfers. Shocking. Why wouldn't they? Why freaking wouldn't they? Can you imagine you're in prison, you're in there for freaking life, and you obviously can't have sex because you're just with nothing but dudes, and you go, hell, man, if I just tell them that I'm a woman, I can go get all that, you know what, at another prison, another state, and get 2 people pregnant, or even possibly rape them. Last year, speaking of, a transgender prisoner at New York's infamous Rikers Island jail raped a female prisoner while in the women's section of the lockup, according to authorities. Ramel Blount, 33, who goes by Diamond Blount, took a deal to plead guilty to attempted rape April 7th and was sentenced to 7 years, according to New York Post. Also last year, a transgender inmate allegedly raped a developmentally disabled woman while both were combined behind bars at the Washington State Correction Center. So it's not like it's unfounded. It's not like it's made up. You saw 2 examples, most recent examples of what took place, but they can't fathom that there'd be people like this that would do this. It is so baffling that you have in these interviews, these street interviews, that whether it's, Sav Says from Blaze Media, the Daily Wire going out, or whoever it may be, you have these people going, oh, I don't think anybody would do that. When you ask them, well, do you think a prisoner that's a biological male would pretend to be female and then go rape somebody, or just want to go to another facility that caters to their gender identity so they can have sex with other people? No, I can't believe somebody would do that. Why would they do that? Yet they're talking about actual criminals that are willing to go kill people, right? Rape people in prison, kill people in prison. This is the left. They're not there. They're so similar to Joe Biden. And that's why those shorts I make, it's called, this is the Democrat Party. Because when the head is clueless, the body's clueless. Meaning if Joe Biden's clueless, the party itself clueless, and it falls down to the American people that vote for that knucklehead to go in office. All 92% of you that are Democrats have voted for that idiot. That's where you're at as well, because you're in for all this. This is what you want. This is the America you want to create. America of theft, America of crime, America where you have these freaking inmates say that they're female, go into a female facility, get everybody pregnant, rape other people, rape a disabled, developmentally disabled woman. This is the America that the Democrats want. You're not going to see this coming from Republicans or conservatives. With that being said, folks, that is all the news I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.